having me. I appreciate it. Great to speak in this different format. And get the opportunity to talk to some coaches who apparently are there, but I can't see. So yeah, I mean, fake fundamentals. The basic idea is there are a lot of things that we traditionally do, both in terms of drills, in terms of instructions, in terms of just general approaches to training and practice, that look as though they are important and training fundamentals and working on things that appear like they would improve performance or develop skills, but in reality, they are either outdated or incompatible with today's game, or not unable to really transfer to game performance. And so that's kind of the name, the fake fundamentals name is they look as though they're really improving something that's important, but they're really not. And if you look at things a little bit more critically, you can see how, these drills or these instructions that we've, taught for generations and that are kind of a staple of basketball throughout the world, they really don't do or don't achieve the goals or the outcomes that we think that they're going to achieve or that we're using them to achieve. Shall I continue?
Can you give us then some examples of what fake fundamentals can be? Do we use them a lot today, do you think?
It always depends on the coach. So one example that probably everybody uses is the zigzag drill. That's common throughout practices. So, I get the ball, defensive players on me. I'm going to take 3 dribbles to my right, then I'm going to change. I'm going to go 3 dribbles to my left, 3 dribbles to my right. And it looks like it's teaching something that's important. That happens in basketball. People dribble the basketball up the court. Defensive players guard the basketball, during the game. We need to change directions with the basketball when we're dribbling. All these things, it appears that we're really training things that happen a lot, and in a way that we would think would improve or transfer to better performance during games. But in reality, the way that I've always been taught when I was a player how to do the zigzag drill is, there's no decision making involved. There's no variety, if you will. It's always, you take 3 dribbles to your right, you get all the way, usually, we always used, the third of the court basically. So we went from the sideline to kind of the lane line extended, so you would dribble 3 dribbles till you got, close to the sideline. Then you're going to change directions, take 3 dribbles back towards the lane line with your left hand, change directions. And if you beat the defensive player, then you just stopped and you waited for the defensive player to get back in front. And so from an offensive standpoint, and same thing, if the defensive player stole the ball, then they just hand it back to you and you start again. And so, from a ball handling standpoint, when the defense isn't really trying to steal the ball, it changes the way. And the fact that it's, one-on-one and your only goal as the ball handler is to protect the ball and to eventually advance the ball up court. And it doesn't matter how much time you take. It doesn't matter if you see the whole court. None of those things matter. All you have to do is protect the ball, take your time, just don't let them steal, which is unlike what's going to happen in the game. Because if you dribble like that in a game, somebody's going to come from behind and trap you, or if you dribble that slowly during a game, you're going to get an 8-second violation. It's just, you aren't worried about, or you're not attending to what else is on the court. And so you're teaching a very narrow skill set. And then from a defensive standpoint, the key to being able to be a good on-ball defensive player, one of them is being able to read and anticipate when the offensive player is going to change directions. And if I know that every third dribble you're going to change directions, then I just have to attend to how many dribbles you've taken. I'm not attending to, what your, foot is telling me about when you're going to change directions, or what the ball is telling me, or what your shoulders are telling me, or what your vision's telling me. Whatever cues I'm going to use in a game to try to read when you're going to change directions as opposed to continuing in the same direction. The other thing is, if I'm going to change directions every 3 times, as a defensive player, I don't actually have to beat you and force you to change directions. I just have to stay next to you for 3 dribbles, and then you're going to go back the other way. And so then you get in a game and you do that same thing, but the player doesn't change directions because you never actually beat them. You never actually took away the original direction. So I just keep continuing in a straight line. And so, we practice these things, and coaches do the zigzag drill every day, and we talk about how important it is. And then the first time we get in a game, player gets the ball, the point guard, instead of on his 3rd dribble, instead of changing directions like the defensive player thinks, he goes in a straight line and he beats him down court, and now we've got a fast break. And then the coach is yelling at him like, where are you? You're supposed to beat him to the spot. He's like, well, I did what I did in practice. It just didn't work. And then the ball handlers, got his head down, dribbling, and, bringing the ball up the court, and maybe he protects the ball, but he doesn't see the open player. It's the coach is like, pass the ball ahead. It's like, well, yesterday at practice, I just dribbled back and forth, then I changed directions 12 times going up and down the court, because that's what we practice. We don't practice, taking one dribble and then passing it ahead because I have somebody open and my head's down and all I'm worried about is protecting the ball. And so this is, to me, one of the things, you look at the drill and it's like, yeah, that's something that happens in the game. We have, defensive players, offensive players, we're dribbling the ball, we're trying to get the ball down court. Obviously that's something that's very important. We're developing the right skills. Our players are going to be prepared to play against, pressure defense or against, good offensive players tomorrow. Then we get in a game and it completely falls apart. And it's like, oh, we must not have practiced hard enough. Let's just, do it more. And, and we'll do more. And if we did it 3 times yesterday, we'll do it 5 times today. And then on that 5th time, now we know that we're going to have it. Instead of saying, well, maybe it doesn't work in the game because it's not the same thing. I'm practicing some of the physical skills involved, but I'm not doing it at the same pace. I'm not reading the same cues that I would have to read. I'm not, the outcome isn't the same, from an offensive standpoint. My offense, the desired behaviors for me offensively, I'm not trying to just dribble the ball down the court from baseline to baseline. I'm trying to score. I'm trying to pass the ball to a teammate who's going to score, and so, a simple drill like that, you can do the same basic thing, or start out with the same basic thing, but just make it one-on-one where they're trying to score, or make it, I've done the same thing kind of 3-on-3 where you're basically zigzag in the backcourt, more or less. But if the offense beats them, they go. It's not like, well, if I beat them, I'm going to stop. But we're more or less starting in the same way, one-on-one in a confined area. But then once we get to half court, you have to make a pass. So as you're bringing the ball up the court, now you've got a offensive player on the right wing and offensive player on the left wing. And if you beat your guy, or get a little bit of an advantage on your defensive player, now maybe the help defense has to cheat in a little bit. So now that pass is easier. Whereas if you can't beat your defensive player, now those defensive players on the wing can stand out and deny that pass, and now it's a harder pass to make. So it's the same idea, but now we're incorporating the end result that we're going to have when we dribble the ball. Because, when we dribble, our goal isn't just to dribble. Our goal is to create, a pass or a shot. And then defensively, the same thing. Our goal defensively isn't just to make the defensive player, or the offensive player change directions. Excuse me. The goal defensively is ultimately to prevent that player from creating the shot that they want to take. And whether that's by creating a steal, or whether that's by deflecting a pass, or whether that's forcing them to make a pass, outside of the zone where they want to get the ball. So if my teammate wants to catch the ball at the 3-point line, and our defensive pressure forces them to catch the ball 5 feet outside the 3-point line, well, then I've done my job defensively. If I let that player into the key and draw, everybody in to help, and now they kick out to wide open players, I haven't done my job, even if I prevented my player from scoring, with the team defense. So, that's kind of the basic idea is it's a drill that looks important. It looks like something that happens in the game. It looks like, skills that are vital to improvement that we really need to develop in players. But in reality, it misses the important parts of those skills, and therefore it doesn't really transfer and improve game performance.
Yeah, you make me smile when you're telling these stories, because I, as a young basketball player, I did this like 5 days a week, and I also coach that with my own players. And I think that we do that a lot because, as you said, it looks like the clever thing to do, and it's recognizable from game situations, so that we just take it in, and the coaches did that to us. So we think it's a clever thing to do. But today we've been talking a lot about basketball IQ and about being creative as a player. How then can we use drills like this, like the zigzag drill, and develop them and build them out to be good drills where the players can develop then IQ and creativity for game situations?
Well, I think the idea of a zigzag drill, like I said, if you make it more of a one-on-one situation, as opposed to you have to change directions every 3 dribbles. So if I make it one-on-one and I still use that confined space, now it changes, because I have to, as a defensive player, I have to, attune to the offensive player. And now I have to think about, well, what are my strengths as a defensive player? Where do I have the advantage? Do I need to give space because the player I'm playing against is faster? Do I need to take away space? Do I need to force them left? Do I need to keep them on the sideline? Like, where can I create an advantage? And then as they start to dribble, like, do I need to cut off the space all the way and take away the sideline? Or, are we all the way down into the front court? And now when I take away the sideline, I'm sending them to the middle of the court, which is probably not what I want to do, and what most defenses, in the half court, are predicated about keeping the ball out of the middle. But then we run the zigzag drill where we're teaching players, well, if they're on the sideline, you got to cut them all the way off and send them to the middle. So again, it doesn't match what we're teaching in our team defense. So if we, if we make it one-on-one, and now the player has to think about these things, they have to think about where their advantage is. They have to think about, how this is going to fit into where I want that player to go. I don't want the player going middle. So once we get down into the front court, I'm not going to cut them off all the way. I'm going to cut them off to prevent them from turning the corner and getting to the middle of the basket or getting to the key. I have to think about, whether they can use their left hand. Maybe I should cut them off early and force them to their left hand because I think they're weak. They're not going to be able to create a shot there. Or as they're coming at me, I have to read, well, when they dip their shoulder, now I can see that they're going to cross over. I can anticipate that, or, if they're going to try to use an in and out move on me, they don't really sell it. So I don't have to go for that fake. I know that they're making a fake instead of actually making a move, so I can start to read these things on players and pick up on cues. And then from an offensive standpoint, the same thing happens. If we're just playing it as a one-on-one drill and I'm trying to score, well, now how am I trying to create a basket? Where's my advantage? Can I beat this player immediately and then just use speed and get my layup? Or, if they catch up to me, what's my move going to be? If they catch up to me, 10 feet from the basket versus 5 feet from the basket versus 20 feet from the basket. Do I want to hesitate? Do I want to wait and make a Euro step? Am I just going to go hard and I'm a bigger player than the player I'm playing against? So I just need to get 2 feet in the key, jump stop, and finish over them. So I'm starting to think about my advantages versus this player. Where do I want to play the game? Where can I create my advantages? And then once I've kind of thought about, well, where am I going to create my advantages versus this player? Well, then what do I have to do to create those advantages? And when we set it up as a one-on-one situation, as opposed to we'll take 3 dribbles, then change directions, well, now I can attempt different things. I can try different things. My goal is just to beat this player. It's not just to dribble side to side. One thing that I've noticed with players, and I can tell when I go and I do a clinic with teams that do the zigzag drill a lot, you put them put them in the middle of the court on the baseline and say, okay, we're going to play full court one-on-one. Their first dribble they take is at a 45-degree angle because that's what they've been doing in zigzag drills for their whole life. I don't want to go at a 45-degree angle. Once I start going at that 45-degree angle, I've already made the job easier for the defensive player. I want to go in a straight line. So if I'm in the middle of the court, basket's in the middle of the court, I want to go in a straight line. I want to make one quick fake, and beat that defensive player so that I never leave, the lane line extended. Ideally that's going to be my shortest route to the basket. I don't want to start at a 45-degree angle and end up, even if I'm progressing, end up, in the half court corner because I'm on this angle. And so players start so often in zigzag drills, even when they do undefended dribbling, that they do a zigzag with no defense, and they're just taught go at a 45-degree angle. The goal isn't to go at a 45-degree angle. You're going at a 45-degree angle if the defensive player is forcing you to go at that angle, if the defensive player is playing good defense. But if that defensive player backs off 5 feet, there's no reason why you're going at an angle. You should be attacking the defensive player like it's an open court move, not like you're in some pressure defensive situation. And so if you set it up as one-on-one, then you can, you can work on those skills, and you can, teach them, allow them more freedom to, make the move that's going to beat the defensive player, and develop a little bit more creativity that way, both with the dribble moves, and then again, on the other end, when they get to the basket with their finishing. And then in terms of basketball IQ, that's where, I would incorporate, defensive players into this, like instead of playing one-on-one, most of the time we play 2-on-2, and we play a lot of 2-on-2 full court, especially with younger players, or teams where I don't have, if I don't have 15 players, on the team, then it's easier to play 2-on-2 full court, because then you don't have as many players, sitting out and stuff like that. But, even just with 2-on-2, I have to make the decision, is a trap coming to me? Is the help defense? Is my teammate more open than I am? And so I'm going to incorporate all these all these decision-making aspects that aren't there in a one-on-one situation. And same thing from a defensive standpoint. Do I need to go help? Do I need to switch because my teammate got beat and I'm just going to switch and let my teammate recover to my man? Am I just gonna kind of jump to the ball and slow them down and then recover to my player? Excuse me. All these small decisions we start to make in these 2-on-2 situations. And then we can expand out to 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. And so when I coached young players a long time ago, under 9s, that's almost all we did at practice. Is we play 1-on-1 full court, then we play 2-on-2 full court. I call it rugby rules. You can't pass the ball forwards. Then we would go to 3-on-3 full court. Same thing. We call the hockey rules. You can't pass the ball across the half court line. And these rules are just set there so that you're just not hucking the ball down and making it a race for a basket. Then we play 4-on-4, and then we play 5-on-5, and that was pretty much practice. And we built from the small all the way to the full-sided game. But we did it in live situations. None of it was drilled. None of it was controlled. Some of it was constrained. We might play 1-on-1 in a smaller space. We might play 2-on-2 in a smaller space. But we weren't limiting players and telling them, well, you can't beat the player, or you only use this move or only use this fish. They had the creativity to attempt to use whatever moves they wanted to, whatever moves they thought would be best. And then starting to build the decisions from my individual decision of how do I beat my player to then, okay, I've beat my player. Now there's a second player there. Is it a pass or is it a shot? To a third player, okay, well, I beat my player. I drew the help. Okay, well, is that third defensive player, are they rotating in to take away, the first player, or are they staying with their own players? So who's going to be the open player on the pass? Or do I still have to lane myself to the basket? So, we're just building up throughout a practice, just kind of adding layers to the skill, starting with the 1-on-1, essentially taking the zigzag drill and just making it live, and then building to 2-on-2, 3-on-3, etc.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question here from Alexander. Hi, Alexander. Hi, Brian. Just a thought, Alexander writes. We use the zigzag a lot as a prerequisite for making defensive reads 1-on-1. I believe every player will need teaching as far as distance, turning the offensive player, feet and hand positions, etc., etc. Are you saying you can skip the zigzag and jump straight into practicing the realistic situations in zigzag as a fake fundamental is in that sense?
I would say yes. Because to me, when you set up these things in the zigzag drill, again, as I described the zigzag drill, I think you can probably, hello? You can probably set up the zigzag drill as a kind of quasi-live drill, if you will, where you can probably make it better than the drill that I've described. But in terms of the drill that I've described, I think you can skip that entirely, because I don't think the things that you're trying to teach are going to translate once it gets into the live situation, because once you put players in that situation and they know that the offense is going to change directions every 3 dribbles, mentally, I don't have to attend to anything else. I only have to count dribbles. I don't have to notice the distance away from the offensive player. I don't have to notice, where my hands, where my feet are, where I have to get to actually cut off, offensive player and to actually prevent that attack. I don't have to decide whether I really want to get all the way in front, so I'm kind of chest to chest and taking away that lane, or whether I want to stay ahead of the ball, on the sideline and stay ahead of the ball and keep them going straight down the sideline to the baseline, as opposed to getting chest to chest and then on their crossover they're going straight to the middle of the basket. And so when it's a predictable environment like that, I just don't think that you're learning those basic cues. I think you can do kind of one-on-one, where maybe if you're trying to work on the defensive footwork or getting the defensive players, young players, comfortable being close to an offensive player and changing directions and things like that. Maybe you play it where the offense is going 3/4 speed or something like that. You make the offensive players, when they change directions, you make them use anything but a front crossover, something that's potentially going to slow down the offensive players on a change of direction move. So instead of being able, once I have that slight advantage and I make that crossover and I'm going to blow past the defensive player, well, maybe if we're younger players and my handle's not as good, maybe if I force, I say, okay, you can't use a front crossover and I have to go through my legs, maybe that slows me down just enough that the defensive player can recover and build some confidence there. Or maybe I go behind my back, around my back, or a spin move, different things. And so now I'm forcing the offensive player to work on different moves that if it was just a one-on-one situation in a competition, maybe they stick to a front crossover every single time because it's going to lead to more success. So maybe from an offensive standpoint, I'm working on, forcing offensive players to practice different moves that they may not have the confidence in and may not want to practice as much in a competitive situation. And from the defensive standpoint, I'm giving them, just that split second more time where they can recover on a change of direction move and get back in front instead of just getting blown by on the first move every single time. So I think there's ways that you can manipulate, a one-on-one situation, and if, if you have a ton of players going at one time and you don't want to use a basket, because, maybe it's dangerous to have, so many groups going at the same time and shooting, and maybe you just go baseline to baseline a couple of times, I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but I do think it is somewhat dangerous because, again, I think we underestimate how we see skills and how they, transfer to games. I mean, I've been in games where players, the offensive players dribbling up the sideline, and the defensive player does a great job. They're in the front court. Let's say they're 20 feet from the basket. Defensive player does a great job, gets all the way in front of them, takes away the straight line drive. But now on that crossover, they're on a straight line to the rim. And then their coach, starts yelling, "What are you doing? Why are you forcing him to the basket? We want to keep him on the sideline." It's like, "Coach, that's what I did yesterday, in the zigzag drill. You told me to beat him." And then the coach is like, "Well, not there, only back in the backcourt." It's like, "Well, in practice, we did it the whole length of the court. I was in this exact spot yesterday and I beat him. And then he took 3 dribbles to the middle and then he changed directions again and went back to the corner because that's the drill." And so whenever players start playing the drill, then you're losing a lot of the lessons that are going to transfer to the game. And if you're going irate on the bench because your player did exactly what you told him to do in practice and he beat that player to the spot and he took away the straight line drive, and he went middle, and now he's on a straight line drive for a layup to the middle, and you're yelling at him for that when you did the zigzag drill the day before, then you're not understanding what that drill is teaching, because that drill is teaching him it doesn't matter where I am, I'm supposed to get in front and turn the dribbler. You know, now if that's not what you want, then you can always do things like play, you know, kind of you know, half speed or quasi zigzag drill in the backcourt, and then once you get to the front court, then it's one-on-one. So we're going to, you know, for, you know, maybe 3 times we're going to practice, you know, just kind of the technique of changing directions. But then once we get to half court, then it's live, and you got to play it like you're trying to prevent a basket, not like you're playing the drill. So again, there's different ways that you can change things, but to me, I would not use the zigzag drill as it is commonly taught at all, because I think it teaches the wrong things, and the wrong lessons transfer to game performance.
So you're actually then saying that we should skip the. Are you saying that we should skip the entire the zigzag drill entirely? And are there other of these traditional skills drills that we all use and have been taught that we should skip as well?
Yes, I'm saying that I personally would never use the zigzag drill as I've explained the zigzag drill, you know, as I was taught when I was a player, you know, with all the, you know, 3 dribbles, you know, just up and down the court, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to change the zigzag drill, you know, like I just said, you know, zigzag in the middle of the court to half court, and then it's live from there, or, you know, some other way. But to me, I would just play one-on-one. And if I want to work on the technique of the defense, I'm going to slow down the offense somehow. You know, if I want to work on different moves with the offense and the defense is stealing the ball every time, well then, you know, maybe I'll do something to constrain the defense a little bit, you know. But I just don't like, I just think the zigzag drill, as I was taught the zigzag drill, transfers the wrong lessons to game performance. As for other drills, yeah, there's tons of them. You know, I mean, I think a lot of the things that we do, again, they just don't achieve what we want them to achieve, you know, and you know, for some, they still might have a value, you know. So one is, you know, the 3-man weave. You know, 3-man weave is not a terrible drill if you're using it just for a conditioning purpose. If you're telling me that, as many coaches have, well, yesterday in our game we committed 25 turnovers, so we're going to do passing today, and so we're going to do 10 minutes of the 3-man weave drill. You can do 10 minutes of the 3-man weave drill, and that is not going to improve your passing at all. It's just not a passing drill to me. You know, it's most turnovers, you know, beyond maybe the beginner age level, whatever that is, you know, for you guys, 8-year-old, 9 years old, whatever, are going to occur because the defense causes or affects the turnover in some way. Very few turnovers occur just because I'm standing still and you're standing still and nobody's guarding us and we can't pass the ball to each other. You know, very few even happen, you know, if I'm on the move and you're on the move and we pass the ball to each other when we're open. And if turnovers do occur in that situation, it's usually because on the catch we travel, you know, or if we're a young player and we're trying to get more momentum on the ball, we travel before we throw the pass. And so if, especially coming off the dribble. And so if we're doing a 3-man weave and we allow traveling, or if we're catching the ball and passing it right away and not dribbling, you know, we're not actually practicing, you know, the things that typically cause those kind of turnovers. But most turnovers, you know, on passes are going to be some way involved with a defensive player, whether it's I didn't see a help defensive player, you know, or I didn't anticipate, you know, how fast my teammates running because they're defensive players on them, and maybe I throw the ball inside while they're calling for the ball outside, or, you know, my defensive player tipped the ball, their defensive player tipped the ball, You know, all these things, that's usually where more of the turnovers are going to happen. And none of that is practice when you're doing a 3-man weave drill. And so, you know, again, if you want to do conditioning at the beginning of practice and you want a ball involved and you think the 3-man weave is the best way to condition, great. You know, I think there's better ways, but it is what it is. But if you think that your team had too many turnovers at a game and needs passing practice, and so to practice, you're going to do the 3-man weave, excuse me, one, I don't think you get enough repetitions to really affect change in a 3-man weave drill. Two, there's no defense. It's not what happens in a game. And so it's not going to really transfer to improve game performance. And it's just not going to solve the problem, you know. And so that's one of my big things, you know, with the fake fundamentals. It's kind of, you know, based on a couple ideas. One is that when we use drills, we should use drills to solve problems. And so rather than starting with the drill, the 3-man weave, and then just deciding to use it because, well, we need to work on passing, so I've done this passing drill before, let's do that today at practice. Instead, I think we should start with the problem. What's our problem? Okay, well, we had too many turnovers. Why do we have too many turnovers? Well, we were trying to pass the ball into the post, and you know, the defensive post player kept getting in front of our offensive post player and tipping the ball and stealing it. Well, okay, if that's our problem, how in the world is 3-man weave going to solve that problem? You know, so we want to start with, you know, creating drills for our practice that are based on the problems that we see, the problems that we've had recently, the problems that we want to solve, as opposed to just taking these generic list of drills that everybody does and say, okay, well, here's a passing drill, let's just plug that one in today, and I've got this other shooting drill, and we'll plug that in, and there's a dribbling drill, we'll do that. And maybe they have nothing to do with what our team actually needs. You know, and then the second idea kind of for fake fundamentals is just that idea of we need to think more critically about what we're doing at practice. You know, and if you see that your team is making, you know, errors on the outlet pass and a 3-man weave is a way to practice that, you know, and that's the problem you're trying to solve, then great. You know, at least you're thinking about what it is you're trying to do. You know, I think too many practices are basically like taking off a template off the internet, you know, or off somebody's book, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do, you know, my warm up, and our warm up's going to be a 3-man weave, and then we got to do a dribbling drill, so we're going to do some stationary 2-ball drills because I saw that on YouTube yesterday, and then we need to do a shooting drill. Well, I got this shooting drill off Instagram from a college coach, and he's good, so it must work. And then I'm going to do this, and it's just like this list of drills, and there's no thought as to why am I actually using this drill? Why does this coach use the drill for his team? Well, maybe his team shoots 43s a game, and that's why they use this drill. But I'm coaching kids who aren't even good enough to shoot 3-pointers, so why am I using the same drill? You know, I just think that again, it's like we take these templates or we take these drills that everybody's done, and we don't actually think about why we're using them. And then the final kind of idea is that, you know, within motor learning and within, you know, skill development and so forth, you know, there's the principle of specificity, you know, and I think this is where we get into problems with things like the zigzag drill and the 3-man weave. And when we talk about the specificity, basically, you improve at what you practice, right? You get better at what you do. And so if I want to jump higher, I need to practice jumping higher. Right? I need to do things that get me jumping higher. Just taking small jumps might make a small improvement, but it's probably not going to improve my max vertical jump, right? Well, same thing in basketball. If I want to get better dribbling under pressure in a game, I need to dribble under pressure in a game or in a game situation. And again, a zigzag drill isn't that. And so when we think about, well, we're doing our practice is specific because you know, it's a player dribbling in the backcourt against a defensive player. But yeah, but the defense isn't the same. They're not trying to steal the ball. The offensive objective isn't the same. They're not trying to pass the ball up court. You know, I mean, one of the big things, you know, that you hear all the time is game shots at game speed from game spots, right? And to me, that's meaningless. There's nothing game-like about those drills. Most of them involve no defense, and they're game-like only because you've picked a spot that your player shoots in a game. So let's say you run a flex offense, so you come off a down screen to the elbow and you take jump shots. So you're going to have players start on the block, run to the elbow, catch and shoot, and call it a game shot, game-like shot, because that's where we shoot in a game. But there's nothing game-like about that. There's no defense and there's no decision. You know, that player knows that every time he catches the ball, he's shooting. Whereas in a game, he has to make a decision. Is that player going to shoot? Is he open? How open is he? How much space does that player need to feel open? Is there a teammate that's more open? Is he more open for a shot fake and a drive? And if every time all we're doing is, well, coach passes the ball to me and I shoot, it doesn't matter where you shoot from or how fast you run. There's nothing game-like about that. And so, you know, but you look at the drill and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's practicing something important, you know, and it looks specific because that's the shot that he takes in a game. So it's very specific, but it's specific only in one sense, and that's location. It's not specific in terms of everything else that happens within a game. And so those are kind of the three basic, you know, ideas that the fake fundamental, you know, idea was built out of is, you know, drills are there to solve a problem, not just to fill time. You know, that we really need to think critically about what we're doing during practice and maximize the effectiveness of our practice, not just the efficiency, you know. And then specific practice means that we get better at what we do, and that is exactly what we do. That means if we're doing a 2-ball dribbling drill, we're getting better at dribbling 2 balls. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get better at handling the ball against a defensive player, against a trap in a full court situation when we need to get the ball up the court in 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's just so fun listening to you. It's so interesting. Thank you so much. I have one more question before we start to wrap it up, and that's the theme for today at this seminar is small-sided games. And do you think that small-sided games can be a way to move, effective to move away from fake fundamentals and to be more game-like and preparing the players for the situations that they will actually meet?
Yes, I mean, I would say most of my practice, you know, would be in some way a small-sided game or some version of, you know, a small-sided game or a constrained game. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, one of the misconceptions that we have within skill development is that there are drills that develop skills and then you play games. To me, play is learning. And you know, I had a Division I coach. I was coaching at a junior college, you know, and this may have been when I had my favorite Norwegian player, Emma Hergo, on my team. But we had a Division I coach come in and watch our practice, and you know, they watched the whole practice. Like, that's a great practice. You know, I loved everything, et cetera, et cetera. Do you ever work on skills? You know, do you ever do anything for skill development? I'm like, yeah, our entire practice. Like, what part of that practice was not skill development? Like, we weren't running plays. We didn't do 5-on-0. Like, the whole practice was, you know, we basically, you know, the only thing that wasn't technically basketball skill development is our dynamic warm up, which I use for movement development, you know, or movement skill development. But, you know, I mean, practice generally was like some kind of shooting drill, and then, you know, 2-on-2, because we did a lot of pick and roll. So we'd play a lot of 2-on-2 half court. Then we'd play 3-on-3, then 5-on-5. We'd probably throw another shooting drill in there somewhere. Maybe had a post guard breakdown where we played 1-on-1, you know, 1-on-1 in the post, 1-on-1, you know, on the wing for the guards. You know, I mean, that's kind of a typical practice, you know, and this coach is like, well, you know, I mean, all that's good and stuff, but you actually practice skills. And it's like, well, every part of that is skill development. Like, we don't play 1-on-1. Like, I don't know what do you think 1-on-1 is, you know, like, So yes, I believe small-sided games. I believe that is what most of a practice should be. You know, I just think that it is the way that you can. So basically, when people look at drills and we look at something like, okay, well, I need to, you know, practice my dribbling, so I'm going to do a drill like the zigzag drill. Well, what we think about is we need to make the drill easier for children because they're not skilled enough to do the whole skill or the whole skill in a full game environment. And so to make the drill easier, we tend to eliminate all the complexity of the skill or all the task representativeness. We take away, more or less, we take away all the decision making from the drill, as opposed to simplifying the complexity. So if 5-on-5 is too complex for players, then we play 3-on-3. If that's too complex, we play 2-on-2. If that's too complex, we play 1-on-1. You know, only when 1-on-1 is too hard for players, then do we maybe think, okay, well, they're not ready to play at all. Maybe they're, you know, new beginners, they don't know the rules, whatever. So we need to explain some things, you know, just so that they can understand the rules and the point of the game. But once we're past, you know, our first 2 or 3 practices, you know, they should have already picked those things up, and we should be okay that you know, 1-on-1 to a certain extent, you know, if the offense is having no success, then we just need to create a greater advantage, you know, for the offense against the defense. So maybe we play 1-on-1 where you know, the defensive player has to start on the offensive player's hip instead of in front, or we play with a closeout, and if the defense is getting there and taking away all the shots, well, we just start the defensive player further away from the offensive player so they have more space. Or, you know, we have them, you know, have to both of them dribble around a cone, and if the offense isn't as good as the defense, we just spread the cones out a little bit more so the offense has a little bit more space. There's you know, a number of ways that you can manipulate the environment, and you can even create, you know, essentially wide open shots for the offense, but they have to attend to that defensive player. So even though, you know, you've created a constraint, and, you know, whether it's running around cones or whatever, that there is no way that defensive player is going to contest the shot. You know that. You've created such a head start for the offensive player. Defense has no chance. But the offense still has to think about that defensive player. That offense still has to execute, because if they fumble the ball or if they slow down too much or whatever, then that defense player has a chance to play defense. You know, so the offense has to execute. And so just by doing this simple thing, you've made it a little bit more game-like, you know, for the players, because now they can't just focus on the one thing. They've got to attune to both of them, you know, just like they're going to have to do in a game. And so, you know, regardless of the situation, regardless of the drill, I think you can always create a small-sided game type situation or constrained drill type situation to replace any of the fake fundamentals or any of the kind of traditional drills. But again, it's got to start with, you know, what are we trying to achieve? Not with, well, I like this drill, but I'm just going to make this drill slightly better because, you know, this guy I listened to talk for a while said that I shouldn't do this exact drill, so I'm going to do this exact drill with this slight modification. No, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And then design your own drill from there.